Welcome everyone to another Friday episode of What Is. I know it's kind of a crazy name, but you know what we're doing here at Udefine Wellness is that we're introducing health and wellness professionals to other modalities. So because collaboration is really important in the healing arts, and we give, since we're doing it on Facebook Live, we're giving the general public the opportunity to eavesdrop in on our conversation and learn about some of the modalities we have out there. I'm Denise O'Malley, the founder of Udefine Wellness. And it is my pleasure to introduce to everyone today scientific hand analysis with Jayne Sanders of Purpose Whisperer in the Colorado area. And Jayne, did I say your business name correct?
You did.
Oh, yay, I'm so glad. I know
Yeah.
that you've had a few variations over the years, and this is the actual name that I loved because it is all about finding your purpose. So I've heard about scientific hand analysis. It's now your guys' time. So Jayne, I am going to turn it over to you.
All right. All right. And I love the name What Is. It pulls me in to say, what is what? I want to learn what is.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So what is scientific hand analysis? And I'm going to start by sharing just a few slides with you all so you can see, in addition to hearing my voice. So what is scientific hand analysis? It actually stems from ancient palmistry, like anything with the hands does, but this is a database that was created over a 40-year period and analyzing over 30,000 hands, which is more, subjects than any FDA approved drug out there. So the empirical evidence is profound. It's so accurate that it was featured in Forbes and on ABC. A neurosurgeon wrote the foreword to the book that was written by the founder of this system, scientific hand analysis, a neurosurgeon from Stanford who he's retired now, but he was using scientific hand analysis with his patients. And it can be done remotely using handprints, which is the way I do it. And I have clients in 10 countries. So I'm not limited to people that are in driving distance from me. It is science. The lines in your hands actually mimic the neural pathways in your brain. It is not palm reading, and nothing against palm reading at all. I think it can be fun and helpful, but it does not identify purpose. And palm reading is dependent on the intuitive level of the reader, whereas anybody can learn scientific hand analysis and learn the database. There are no predictions with it. The three main pieces of information that people receive with a hand analysis: number one, your innate life purpose, really how you're meant to make a difference in the world. Now, it's not a job description, that would be cuckoo, but it is the very comprehensive description of the concept behind your ideal work. And everyone has multiple options on work that can align with their innate purpose. So, you're not pushed in a box and there's not only just one thing you're supposed to do. A second thing that it identifies are your innate life gifts, your innate special gifts and talents that help you fulfill your purpose and make the difference you're meant to make in the world. And thirdly, a hand analysis identifies blind spots. We call them student paths, and they're not so blind. Anybody that's done any self-awareness work at all will recognize these. What they haven't recognized in many cases is how impactful these student paths are on them 360 in all aspects of their life and work. So hand analysis really identifies who you are and why you're here. There's a lot of assessments out there that identify personality and strengths and things, but not your purpose. And people tend to really trust this because it's not dependent on their thoughts. It's not dependent on how they interpret questions, how they answer questions, the mood they're in that day. It's etched in their hands. It's their blueprint. And there's a whole list of people who benefit from this work. And this is how I found it. I was unhappy and bored in my work, and I've had 3 careers prior to this in the corporate world, and I always felt off track. And I knew I was supposed to be doing something different, and I couldn't figure it out until I had my hand analysis. People who know they're off track, they're just not on it. They've lost passion in either life or work. And hand analysis can help do this. Now, sometimes people need coaching in addition to the hand analysis, but certainly not always. Some people who are retiring soon and they want to make sure that they leave the legacy that they're meant to leave while they still can. Those who are committed to personal growth and development. Some people want validation that they are on the right track and in alignment with their purpose. Some people like entrepreneurs who really love the work they're doing, but they're not making the money that they want. And I can help identify why not and what to do about it. Some are just curious about what's in their hands. And then from a corporate perspective, leaders who are committed to really being authentic and being positive role models. Hand analysis is a blueprint to that. And also to leaders who are committed to increasing engagement and retention, because by knowing this information about their team members, it helps them assign projects, the right projects to people that are in alignment with those people's innate gifts and purpose, and also put them in the right positions that really takes advantage and uses their gifts and purpose. So just really quickly, did you have a question,
I
Denise?
do have a question. I think this is a good place to interject it. I love everything you just said about helping people find the right places within an organization. But let's quickly talk about one thing and get it out of the way. We have a question on the Facebook page. How do you overcome the superstitions of the scientific insights that you may be given given the stereotypical thoughts about palmistry? So particularly in an organization, they can be thinking, oh my gosh, this is a little bit outside of the realm. So how do you overcome those? Or do you want to answer that later?
No, that's fine. So number one, I point them to my page of dozens and dozens and dozens of testimonials. And then once they experience it, and when somebody hears the full, 30-minute talk on scientific hand analysis, they're convinced. It's interesting. I do several podcast interviews as a guest per month. In most cases, the podcaster becomes a client because they've heard the whole thing, and it's very credible and very convincing. So, and even my own story that I tell when I have time. And certainly one person, if they know one person who has experienced it, that skepticism is gone. And I get it. I was skeptical too. I was too, until I saw the word scientific, and that word helped appease my anal MBA skepticism. Does that help, Denise? Yeah. Okay. So that's how I overcome that. And sometimes I can't, and then it's just not a fit, right? So everybody's got a tribe. Not everybody's going to be able to overcome their skepticism, which makes me sad in a way, because I know what this can do for people. So with scientific hand analysis, everything in the hands means something. So all the lines, the fingerprints have lots of information. The shape of the hand, where the fingers are set on the palm, and the process, the way it can work remotely, as I mentioned before, is through handprints. So when somebody buys a hand analysis, I send them a handprint kit. It's an envelope with instructions and ink sheets, and they take their prints and get them back to me. And then they receive 2 1-hour Zoom calls with me. The first hour for the analysis, the second hour, and both are recorded. They receive the recordings. The second hour is for after they've watched the recording, because believe me, they will hear something different or something new, because there's so much information that comes forward in a hand analysis. I'll say something and they'll start thinking about how it applies to their life, and I'm still talking. So it's important that they review the recording. And then the second call is to answer any questions that pop up, help them really understand the information and apply it into their lives and integrate it toward the goals that they want to achieve. They receive both recordings and also a summary report. And I wanted to show just a couple of examples. So one of the big markings, and you can see examples of it across the bottom here, is your heart line. And it's this uppermost horizontal line that starts under your pinky and goes across the top of your hand. And your heart line is your relationship style, how you communicate in relationship, how you express love and affection, and how you want love and affection expressed to you. So this is, you know, one of the, everybody's got heart lines. There's 4 basic types, or really 5, because the hermit over on the far right has 2 different types. And this is probably the most common heart line that I see, and it's called a social hermit. And a social hermit, so it stops, if you'll notice here, right at or before the halfway point between the middle finger and the index finger. If it goes further than that, it's a different heart line. But a social hermit, and it can be straight as well. It can be a regular hermit, which is relatively straight, sort of like the bottom part of this. But a hermit is somebody who keeps their deepest feelings close in until they trust. They can be very loyal. They really need their alone time. Their freedom is very important to them. Somebody trying to possess or control a hermit, it's just not going to work very well. On the master path, which is, you know, the goal, to be on as many master paths as possible, the master path, hermits have high integrity and high reliability. They can be romantic. They're not so mushy. Their favorite way of communicating love and affection is acts of service, doing things. And the primary student path for them, the primary challenge of this marking, is trust issues, because hermits on the master path are very trustworthy, and they don't get it when somebody flakes out. They just don't get it. So that's a quick and dirty on the social hermit. Other markings I mentioned that hand analysis reveals your innate gifts. And these are just some examples of gift markings, and they're rare. So now I say that, I have gift markings, so I tend to attract people with gift markings, and their line formations is what they look like. Many of them are 6-pointed stars, and you can see a few here, but not every 6-pointed star is a gift marking. It depends on where it is. Some are a series of vertical lines, like you can see under the pinky here, and some, this is your headline, which is how you think, how you make decisions, how you want information presented to you. And a couple of different gift markings can show up on the headline. And there's only 18 possible. And I also just wanted to point out, I think you'll probably can see this fingerprint down in here. Probably about 75% of my clients have fingerprints in their palms, not usually down here, usually up here, like where this one is. But everything means something. So when you have fingerprints in your palms, those count toward all the other interpretations that I'm putting together. So I just wanted to show you how some of the markings show up. And there are dozens and dozens and dozens of options of purpose. So it's not like only 9 possibilities or only 11 possibilities. I haven't even calculated the number. Dozens and dozens. And the same with the biggest blind spot, which we call the life lesson. Boy, you learn what your life lesson is and take action on that, your life is going to change. And there are dozens of options of how life lesson can show up as well. So some people ask, you know, well, what's it feel like to live off purpose? And I mean, I can just fill in the blanks here. It feels like I felt. It feels off track. It feels uncomfortable, boring, stuck, unfulfilled, frustrated, procrastinating a lot, angry, sad, money challenges, relationship problems, career confusion. So all the opposite of those is the reason to find out what your purpose is and live in alignment with it. It's so empowering. You know, it really generates more consistent joy and fulfillment. And in my opinion, as a purpose thought leader, living in alignment with your purpose is the only way to that deeper and more consistent joy and fulfillment and success on your terms. Also, living on purpose just provides this clarity, and the validation gives people confidence and kind of permission to really step into who they are and their gifts and take action they need to take and see the direction that they need to go. And within companies, when a leader uses the information from hand analysis, it really does increase engagement. If people are working on projects that are more in alignment with their gifts and purpose, of course it's going to increase their engagement and morale, and therefore productivity, and reduce attrition and increase retention rates. So pretty powerful stuff, I'll say, and that's an understatement. Any other questions come through, Denise?
We do have some questions. Going back to the word master path, can you dive into that a little bit more as to what you mean by that?
I sure can. Every marking, yeah, this was a real quick and dirty. Every marking has both a master path and a student path. The master path it feels good. It's like going with the flow. The more master paths we're on the markings in our hands, the easier it is to live in alignment with our purpose and experience that deeper joy and fulfillment. The student paths are that bored, stuck, overwhelmed, confused, sad, angry, all the yucky feelings. I call them the yuckies. And there's big yuckies and little yuckies. And with a hand analysis for any marking that's of any importance at all, and which is a bunch of them, you learn what the master path looks like, so you know what to strive for. It's like your lighthouse. And then you learn what the student paths look like, so you can be more aware of them, and that awareness gives you choice to do something about it. It's always up to you. But the key is nobody can be on the master path of any marking 100% of the time, because we're humans, right? We're works in progress. That would be the goal.
That's awesome. So we always invite other providers in the Udefine Wellness Network to join us to be able to ask questions from, curiosity point of view, collaborative point of view. So today we have with us Dr. Natalie Forrest with Natalie Forrest International. Natalie, do you have any questions that you want to ask of Jayne?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Denise. And Jayne, I love the work that you do. And I know how deep you can go with it. I have two questions, and one is maybe a little silly, but when you're talking about handprint and fingerprint, I'm one of those people. If you try to take my handprint, or you lock something up and you need a handprint to open it, whether it's your phone or something, or fingerprint, I can't unlock it. So, my fingerprint, I don't know, maybe my husband always says I use too much lotion. So are there instances where you try to do a handprint or a fingerprint and it just doesn't come out clear enough? And if so, what do you do?
So I have people tell me this relatively often. I would say twice out of several thousand people, I could not read their fingerprints.
Okay.
So if they follow the instructions, and once I had to meet with somebody who was here in Denver and take better prints. So every once in a while, I'm guessing a little bit, but I'm so experienced. I'm as highly qualified as possible. I'm qualified to teach it. I'm a master, which is related to the sheer number of analysis that I performed. So
Yeah.
I'll say maybe twice I couldn't see the fingerprints well enough. That said, they're not clear enough. They're not detailed enough for somebody to steal your identity. I've had that question too.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Good point.
Awesome.
Not
Awesome.
an issue. Don't worry about it.
And then the other thing that I was wondering about, and I may have posted that in the Facebook group as well. You mentioned productivity, engagement, and also using it for leaders. So a simple question is, you and I, we both deal with leadership training and team building and so forth. Is this something that HR professionals in a company should look at to help in the leadership program of their companies?
In my opinion, absolutely. It's so accurate, and it takes out, because for example, And there are a lot of good assessments out there.
Mhm.
So I am not knocking them at all. They are helpful. They provide really good information, but I've taken Myers-Briggs 3 times and got 3
Oh,
different.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is not based, as I mentioned before, on anything the taker, the assessment taker does, says, thinks, what mood
Mhm.
they're in, nothing. It's on how I read their hands, and hands don't
Mhm.
change a lot. Some they do change, but not enough to really make a difference.
Mhm. Mhm.
Great
Can I
question.
ask can I
Natalie.
ask one more question?
You
Yeah,
bet.
good. Bring it up.
Because I mean, I love the way that you also showed the handprints, right? And of course, I'm looking at my hand, I'm going, huh, is it ending here or there? So because I'm not the expert, right? I'm gonna make stuff up. I have an agenda, right? So when people hear like the social hermit or passion, you mentioned there are variables to that.
Yes.
Um, and so I always call it muddy waters. So can I supposedly be I forget the other one, a passionate social hermit?
You can have a passionate and a social hermit line, and
Okay.
you will shift back and forth from one style to another, but not consciously.
Okay.
And
Okay.
some people, you know, rarely, but some people have pieces of all four, which makes them very flexible in relationship.
Mm.
But it also can be confusing because people that you're in relationship with won't know which is going to show up.
Yeah.
Right. One minute you're all snuggle bug Natalie, and the next minute you stiff arming them because you need your alone time. And they're like, what I do? And it's not about them.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Right.
You nailed
Hmm.
that. You nailed that.
So the
Um,
heart line, I just want to say this, the heart
yeah.
line, it's about the only thing that has only 4 options.
Hmm.
Right. And it's just, I use it as an example because a lot of times people can identify their own heart line.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Other lines, it's harder for them to identify what they are.
Hmm. Awesome. Great.
I
Thank
have
you.
a really off the wall question that I have never asked you before, and because you and I have spoken a few times,
We
but it
have,
came to
yeah.
me. Has scientific hand analysis been used in law enforcement when they're trying to profile a suspect and they don't know who it is yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
That would
Not
make
that
a
I'm
great
aware of.
TV show.
Yeah.
There we
There could
go.
be a lot of, my goal where because I have a corporate background is I really want to get this into companies. And
Yeah.
I'm in a corporate group now that invited me to be part of them
Mhm.
because they have experienced my work.
Yeah.
And we're putting together a group to go into companies as, high level consultants. One guy's
Mhm.
strategy, one guy's culture. I will be authenticity and, the things that we've talked about
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
Um, Putting teams together and all that, but
Yeah.
so I'm excited to get it into companies.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, I just realized we had your screen sharing this entire time. Do you want to
Oh,
share your last screen while we go into the final
Well, it's
question?
just my contact
Okay,
information
and
if
that's
anybody
perfect to make
wants.
sure that we have it out there. So everybody capture this real quick. And I'm
Yeah.
going to stop the participant sharing now. You can always rewind and capture it again if you are missing it. So I want to talk, the last question that I have for you, Jayne, is about what is a good prospect for you? So obviously an introduction to a company who is looking to work on team building, restructuring, particularly after this last year that we've been through, and helping them get to that next level. There's an awful lot being talked about culture right now, and this could fit in with all of that. So that is a good prospect. But how about as an individual, particularly when there is a health and wellness professional working with a client? What are the things that they're going to be looking for to identify a good prospect for you? Is it anxiety, feeling lost, don't know where they're going? I mean, all of that is obvious, but
Yep.
tell me.
Well, certainly feeling lost or just feeling blah.
Mhm.
They're just going through the motions
Yeah.
and working for a paycheck and don't feel fulfilled.
Mhm.
Just and they'll know it. They'll know. People know when they're not on purpose. They may not articulate it that way, but
Mhm.
they know something's missing. They feel off track. They just feel blah. They're like, I'm doing this. I just kind of followed my nose, and there's something else I'm supposed to be doing or that I
Mhm.
want to be doing, but I don't know what it is.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned before, a lot of entrepreneurs who love what they're doing, but they're not making the money they want to make.
Mhm.
So some of those student paths will identify what action to take to help with that. But then they've got to take the action. You know, it's like anything else. If you put it in the drawer and don't pay any attention to it, it's not going to do much.
Fantastic. In the end, I do want to actually address one last question. I promise this will be the last one.
Hey, I love questions.
I know you do. But I think that it's important to address, because I've heard it out there a couple of times where somebody has said, oh yeah, I've heard about that scientific hand analysis. It really sounds interesting and intriguing to me, but you know, it's a little bit pricey for what I'm looking for. And so I'm actually not going to ask the question, you can chime in, but I want to address it personally, is to say, what kind of a price can you put on finding your life purpose? You know,
Right.
up until 5 years ago, when I launched You Define Wellness, I had a successful career where think I've shared with you, Jayne, I hated what I was doing. I was floundering, and I was like, but I didn't know what else to do. So I just kept taking the promotions and taking the
Yep.
opportunities, thinking maybe this is what will give me happiness. And I didn't find it. Dang, I wish I'd known you back then and I didn't have to find my own way through this. But man, I would have paid double your fee for you to
Yep.
be able to say, these are things you need to pay attention to, Denise.
Yeah. No, and you just described my life, you know, because I
Yeah.
was successful in my 3 careers too, but I wasn't happy. You know, the first few years were kind of fun, but after that, it was just blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, first of all, if you think about the value of knowing very accurately how you're meant to make a difference in the world. And secondly, I've got a minimum of 2.5 hours in your one analysis.
Absolutely.
So it's
No,
more
you're
the
more than
value,
that.
but then also my time as a high level consultant and coach. Um, so, you know, let's just put it out there, can't we? So if somebody goes to my website, you know, my price is average, maybe a tiny bit on the low side for somebody of my qualifications, and that's $497. That's $500 for the way you're meant to make a difference in the world and where to take action to
Yeah.
make your life better all the way around. And sometimes I run specials. I mean, so that's the highest that it would be, is
Yeah.
$497. And it's so worth it. And after of several thousand people, Denise, not one person has ever asked for a refund. I think that's a pretty big sign.
And
Yeah.
I want to chime in here because I think what people often forget, for you and others, but also for you, it's not just the 2 hours on Zoom that you're with them, right?
No, it's
It's you
preparation.
have to send it out, you have to analyze it, you have to double check it. So my guess is that you're spending at least 5 or more hours on every, probably between 5 and 10 on every person. And then look at what, I love lawyers, but look at what lawyers charge per hour or what other consultants charge per hour,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So really, it is nothing, if you are interested in that, but it goes for most wellness professionals. It's not
Yeah.
just the moment in
Absolutely.
that you're spending with them, but it's the preparation. It's reading up, it's getting certifications. So I love what you're saying, Jayne. It's so important to not just look at, oh my God, it's a price. Yeah, it's a price. And do you think what's going into it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I come fully prepared and
Yeah.
5 years of studying this.
Yeah.
And Denise, too, one of your comments, so a couple of things popped into my head. Now I have to try to remember them because they were 2 minutes ago, which is an eternity. One is companies. It's got to start at the top.
Yeah.
So, and it needs to be obviously progressive thinking leaders that are attracted to disruptive tools. This is a disruptive tools that people find exciting. They might be a little like, whoa, okay, well, let's try it. But soon as one person tries it, it's a done deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other last thoughts, Natalie? Questions you want to ask?
I guess I have one off the wall question. I always like to do the off the wall question last, like the devil's advocate. You and I, we both talk about purpose, life purpose, and we've dived into that. Every now and then I have conversations with people and they believe that the minute that you say, I have a life purpose, that you're a robot. Okay, that you can't make any decisions. So because you're saying, this line determines this. So does that mean because you have those master lines that you are no longer in charge of your life?
Absolutely not, because even with purpose, as I mentioned, there are, I don't know, I would say several hundred options
Mhm.
as to what your purpose is. And as I mentioned, within that, there are many options as to how you can express that purpose. And I will say, purpose work always evolves. You know, so I started as a hand analyst, then I got 4 certifications, then I got a purpose coaching certification, then I got a law of attraction coaching certification,
Mhm.
then I got a spiritual life coaching certification. I just got certified in Ho'oponopono. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with
Yes.
that,
I
but
have heard of it. Yes.
yeah, so it just keeps evolving. So nobody's ever in a box.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that because I
Right,
don't want to be the only one
excellent.
making that argument all the
There's
time.
no off the wall. Yeah. So no off the wall question.
No,
Just,
I think it's a good question because that is
yeah,
something. It's like, okay, well, once I do this, then I'm, that's the road. No, free
no,
will. Free
no.
will's there.
Yeah.
You can do what you want. Jayne Sanders, thank you very much for leading us through this. What is scientific hand analysis? We appreciate you immensely and your expertise that you bring to us every single time that you come in. And of course, Natalie Forrest, thank you for sitting with us today and asking questions from a practitioner point of view. And for those of you who are watching, we hope that you will visit our library on youdefinewellness.com, as well as our Facebook page for You Define Wellness. We have a ton of videos out there. We're bringing the expertise to you to help you on your wellness journey. With that being said, everybody have a fantastic rest of the week.